This video is all about different places that you can go to promote your design work online, and a lot of people when they're starting out are very worried or concerned about letting other people see their work. Perhaps they don't want negative feedback, or they aren't quite sure if they're ready to show off their work yet, but it's actually really important, even if you're just beginning, to go out there and show other people your work so that you can figure out different people's opinions and hopefully learn and grow from those opinions to become a stronger designer. So I'm going to show you a handful of different places online that are really good for showing off your work, as well as gaining inspiration for others, and a lot of these people I'm going to show off are doing this a lot better than I do, at least in my opinion. They've done an incredible job of actually building up communities of people to look at their work, as well as using these different platforms as a really cool way to stay in touch with people or let people know what they're up to currently. So first up here is Dribble, and I think Dribble is really popular partially for the reason that it's invite only, so it has a little bit of mystique to it, but you don't have to be invited to Dribble to actually check out work here. And as always, being active in a community, even if you can't post your own stuff, just posting on other people's work and commenting on it and letting them know how you feel is actually a really great way to get noticed yourself. So first up here is Mccabe, who's extremely talented at hand lettering. He even runs an online course teaching people how to hand letter. So as you can see, he has almost 18,000 followers, which is pretty wild in itself, and almost all of his posts have thousands of people viewing it, which is really incredible when you think about the amount of people here that have went in and checked out his work. So I'm just going to click on one of these posts right here. So you can see he has a really cool hand lettering piece right here. I just zoomed in a little bit here so you can see the work a little bit bigger. Now it's really important when you start posting on Dribble that the most successful posts on Dribble tend to be very polished. Although there are a lot of process shots on Dribble, most of the ones that are in process but become really popular are either showing off that person's methodology for working or perhaps have a very strong idea behind it. So if you do end up getting an account on Dribble, just be ready to make sure that whenever you post something there that it's either really well done and near completion, or it does a good job of showing off your personal style and work methods. Dribble in particular seems to have a really strong appreciation for interesting or different ways of creating work. So if you can figure out a way to kind of tie that in there and show off your stuff that way, that can be a really strong way to gain some new followers. And on this particular post, he links to his hand lettering course, which is a really smart way of advertising what he does. So if someone checks out his hand lettering and wants to learn more about how to actually do it, the link's right there. It's a really strong way of marketing through content. Next up is Pinterest, which I actually avoided for quite a while because I wasn't quite sure that the Pinterest users were really the kind of people that were viewing my work. I think the way I interpreted it initially was that it was too much about crafting or cooking, which isn't really what I'm into, but actually Pinterest is a really great way to show off your work as well as to check out other people's inspirations. A lot of the awesome people on Pinterest will actually have huge boards like this one, and this particular Pinterest board is from Dave Mottram, who's a super talented illustrator. Here's his portfolio page right here, just so you can see what I'm talking about. He's an extraordinarily talented person, but the really important thing here is that he groups and collects all of his inspiration. So if you're looking for inspiration, you can just check this out and have instantly a huge wealth of different images to check out and figure out what inspires this person. So if you really like someone's work and then you end up checking out their Pinterest page, you might find out what inspires them to actually create that work, which is just a really cool way to kind of figure out how other people work and how other people collect and assemble information in a way that helps them keep creating really great work on their own. So I'm just going to click on his board right here for type and lettering. So as you can see, if you're in a hard place looking for different inspiration sources for design work, typography work, anything along those lines, Pinterest can be a really amazing place to just check out work, figure out stuff that you like. I tend to just save everything in a folder that I really enjoy. I have different folders set up on my desktop where I put a generic title like great designs or great typography, and that way I can collect everything I like in one big folder, and when I'm ready to start creating stuff, I can have a huge amount of inspiration just saved up and ready to go. It saves me a lot of time when I'm starting out a new project trying to assemble what kind of style or look I'm going for, when I have a really nice selection of different things to pick from and be inspired from, and Pinterest is a super solid place to go ahead and do that. And it's also a great place for promoting your own work. So you can not only have boards filled with other people's stuff, but for example right here he has his own board called My Work where he can show off all of his own personal projects and then link other people to it so they can go ahead and check that out. So if someone's following him just for all the different inspiration that he posts, he can also post his own stuff in there and really promote himself that way as well. It's a great way to show off your own work in a pretty non-obtrusive way. So next up is Instagram, which is a place that I really wish I focused on earlier, but I got into it pretty late. But people that have been here for a while have built up very strong audiences of people that really support what they do, and it's an awesome way to get your work in front of thousands and potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of people. So this is Ian Bernard, who's a very popular seller over on Creative Market, which is a place for design resources, and I think part of his success over there is due to his strong following on Instagram. He has 12,500 followers, and all of his posts tend to have hundreds, if not thousands, of likes. And if you've ever done advertising online, you know that sometimes it costs up to like $1 or more for someone just to click on one of your links. So when you look at it that way, you can think about the amount of value that places like Instagram provide, that there's multiple thousands of clicks to your links that is essentially dedicated advertising for your work. So for just a little bit of time it takes to post on something like Instagram, you're gaining a huge amount of value from new people checking out your work, as well as other people that have been following you for a while but perhaps don't know what you're up to right now. It's just a really fantastic audience builder. So for this image right here, almost 1,000 likes, tons of comments, and Instagram is also a strong way to keep people up to date with what you're working on currently or interacting with people through the comments section. I find that when you directly interact with people who are fans of your work, that they tend to care a whole lot more about what you're actually doing. So here's an example of his hand-drawn typography. It's really strong work, and that's no doubt a big part of the reason why his page is so successful. People love to go to places like Instagram to be inspired and interact. And also he's posting new work on Instagram almost every day, so that way your audience doesn't get bored or forget that you're there. They're always going to be hopping on and checking out your newest work and being excited by the path that you are taking. And if you follow people on Instagram, you can literally follow their evolution as designers or illustrators, whatever it happens to be that they do, just through the different posts that they make as time goes on. But Instagram is no doubt one of the most popular ways to show your images, and it's one that I'll be personally focusing a whole lot more on in the future. So next up here is Society6, and Society6 is a little bit different as it's really a store for selling your work, but I think it's a really good way to actually get your work in front of people. Society6 is inherently extremely positive. If you're worried about negative feedback or opinions, you can post on Society6 with very little worry about people actually saying something bad. It almost never happens on this particular site. The community is extremely positive. And the cool thing about posting your work for sale is that people can actually check out what you do, and maybe you can make a few extra bucks doing it. And one of the neat things about Society6 in general is that they have the pages go to popular pages by default, so the top sellers will always be at the top. So if you're kind of trying to figure out what work is selling at the moment to help steer you in a path where you're creating work that might actually sell to people, this is a really good way to do it, as you can just cycle through the different top pages for all the different things like iPhone cases or duvet covers or even art prints, because sometimes there's a pretty big difference between work that is the most popular inside a design website like Dribble and then the most popular work in terms of what's actually selling to customers on a website like Society6. And from what I can tell, it doesn't matter if you're a photographer, designer, illustrator, almost anything can become really popular on Society6. It's just all about how you market it. So if you want to be successful on a website like Society6, it's super important that you actually go in there and promote your work. Make sure you interact with different things you like. So if you like something that someone has made, make sure you hit that like button. Consider adding a comment or following the people that you really enjoy. This is particularly important on Society6, where it seems like success is very tightly related to actually interacting with the community that's there, because they're the people that are going to go and share the work on their blogs or websites that will actually end up getting you a whole lot of traffic in the future. And of course, a little bit of extra money that you can make every month through selling on a place like Society6 is pretty cool, because it doesn't really require any additional effort from you. You just post your work and then it's up there for sale, and you'll make 10% off every sale. And it's also a cool way to see your work presented on different items. So there's cell phone cases, there's mugs, there's throw pillows, rugs. There's just a huge amount of different things that you can potentially put your stuff on here. Even wood clocks, which I've bought a couple of, and I thought the overall quality was actually pretty good for a $30 clock. So I think this is definitely a website worth checking out if you not only want to get feedback from people who are generally going to be quite positive, but also if you want to build up a catalog of products. It's a cool way to do that. And sometimes these product mock-up images can look really good in your portfolio, as it displays your work not only as the design or illustration that it is, but how it can be applied to products that actually sell to people. So next up is Tumblr, which is a blog for pretty much anything and everything you can think of, but it's also a really great inspiration place for illustration and designs. So I went ahead and typed in typography in the search bar just so I can scroll through here and check out all the awesome work that is on the top here. The more popular work tends to get sent to the top, so if you're ever looking for inspiration, you can just type in a keyword and you'll find all sorts of cool stuff to go in there and save. So I'll just click on this really cool typography right here. And the neat thing about Tumblr is that it has a reblog feature, so even if you aren't a super popular user on Tumblr, but you're sharing your work, if a really popular Tumblr user happens to stumble across your work, all of a sudden you get hundreds or even thousands of people liking and reblogging your work. And at least personally for me, it's been one of the quickest ways to reach a whole new audience of people super fast, because once a really popular user reblogs whatever it is you are up to, it's a chain reaction that just moves really quickly, and all of a sudden your work that had only a few views can have a few thousand views in the period of like an hour or two. And I think just in general, Tumblr is a really great way to reach a new audience. So definitely check out Tumblr if you haven't before. It's super easy to post stuff there, and you can post pretty much anything you can think of on Tumblr and probably find an audience for it. So next up is Behance, which is one of the very largest social networks for designers, and it's owned by Adobe, so you know it's very well supported. And I just happened to stumble across this person when I was getting ready to make this video, and his name's Rick Austenbrook. I might have pronounced that last name wrong, but he has some really strong work here. And the cool thing about Behance is that it can serve as a very professional looking portfolio. So if you don't want to host your own portfolio elsewhere, Behance is actually a pretty cool place to start. And I'm just going to click on his work right here so you can see how it looks as it's actually produced in a page. There's product tags and it shows the views. This has thousands of views. So once again, this is reaching a very large audience. And as you can see, it's really cool work. So that's part of the reason that it is so popular. If I click on this image right here, this is an incredible use of color as well as shape. And you can find pretty much anything you can think of that is design related on Behance. It's a really huge network. Some of the more popular users here have close to 100,000 followers. So this one's definitely worth checking out, not only for showing off your own work, work, but for checking out the work of other people as well. And just like most of these social networks, it's really important that if you want to get noticed on here and actually have a lot of people checking out your work, that you go in here and leave comments for people that you think are producing work that you really like. Make sure you actually interact with the communities if you want people to notice you, because if you just post your work and then leave, it's fairly unlikely that you're ever going to get noticed, as it can be extremely hard to get noticed if you're not out there and interacting with the community. So last up here is Reddit, and Reddit's a kind of neat place to promote your work, as it can drive some really serious traffic if it gets popular, but it has a few weird rules that you should really watch out for. One thing about Reddit is that they have a rule where you can only post 10% of the links as your own work, so don't go to Reddit and post like 10 links all pointing to your own website. They might ban you for that. I've always thought that was a little bit of a silly rule, but it's there to help prevent spam, so it is what it is. And also one other thing to watch out for, Reddit can be a super negative place for almost no reason sometimes. It's just the nature that is Reddit. So if you're really concerned about getting negative feedback from people, you might want to avoid Reddit, at least until you're a little bit more comfortable. But if you're ready to embrace both the negative and the positive that people might throw at you, then Reddit can be a really strong place, as it does have such a huge and varied user base. So I'm at Reddit graphic design right now, but if you're looking to get some feedback for your work, you can also check out the Reddit design critiques page. So right here is a teacup logo. If you click on that, it will bring up a page where people can comment on your work. Typically people will just use Imager to link their images, so they post all their work here and then they'll get feedback in the actual thread itself. And Reddit can also be a really neat place to find links to either design news or different people's work or exhibitions that are going on. So even if you don't intend to use Reddit as an interaction place to promote your own work or show your own stuff or get critiques, it can be a cool place to learn more about the design industry as a whole. But that's it for this video. It ended up being pretty long, but I hope you found it helpful. And of course, if you have different places that you found to be really helpful in promoting your own work, feel free to leave those in the comments section and let other people know. This is really just a small sampling of the different places that you can go to promote your work. So always be on the lookout for new places, as being one of the first users on a new service can be one of the best ways of getting a lot of notoriety and popularity on that service. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're new to design and you're a little bit worried about promoting your design work, do your best not to be, because friends and family alone typically aren't good enough to get really solid feedback, because friends and family can be a little bit too concerned about hurting your feelings, and they simply might not know enough about design to give you enough legitimate feedback for you to really learn and grow from. So do your best to get over any fear you have of posting your work online. It's just part of being a designer, and if you want to be a professional designer, it's a part that you have to become comfortable with. Once you do it a few times, it's not that big of a deal anymore, and that way you can really learn and grow a whole lot quicker than you could if you work inside of a bubble keeping your work to yourself. But I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please like and favorite, and if you want to see stuff like this every week, please subscribe. I do my best to put out cool content like this every week. Thank you so much for watching.